Click record. Brilliant. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm sure for many of you it's either the first week of term or kind of the pre-week of term, and you're all planning and getting ready to teach next week. I think we've got a mixture of FE providers in here, and there could be some people from school, so welcome. Just to kind of kickstart a bit about the English Association. So we're a charity-based association that welcomes people of all kind of sectors, all the way through from early years through to HE. And FE is kind of the newest part of the English Association. So it's really, really great that we've got so many new members that have come from FE and that we're able to put these events on for people within FE. We have some fantastic resources and fantastic people that help to run events and also to provide resources for not just schools, but also for departments. So if you're ever interested in joining the English Association, we welcome you with open arms. And without all of our fantastic members that do join, we won't be able to put these events on for free. So it's a big thank you to our members that help us to get to do that. Right. So thank you so much for joining us again. So we're here today to talk a bit about navigating Pearson 2.0. And I know for many of you, it may be a transition year to Pearson 2.0, or it may be that you're already delivering Pearson 2.0. And we're kind of keeping that grassroots idea of the fact that the English Association, it's kind of come to us that many people are moving towards it, and that we want to try and build a community around some of those resources, some of that networking. So if you can keep hearing people popping in, some of that networking, and teachers are each other's great resources. So what we want to do is to create that community here as a starting point, and then hopefully that will ripple out. So you'll get to know some people today. So I'd really advise you to pop your name in the chat, say where you're from. If you're happy to share your work email address, that would be fantastic. Obviously, we've had some results that have gone up and down across all of the awarding bodies this academic year, and for many of us, we're all disheartened by some of that. But what we're here today to really focus on is we're here to focus on building that community and moving forward on how best we can support our students. So we've got three fantastic people today who've kindly given up their time as well to come and speak for us. So we've got Ilona, we've got Darren, and we've also got Pam, and they're all going to speak from a slightly different angle. So what we'll do is we'll get started, if that's okay. So I'm going to hand over to Darren straight away. That's all right, Darren?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm from Cambridge Regional College, and we've been delivering Pearson 2.0 for a year. It's worked out reasonably well for us. Student feedback's pretty good. I suppose for us, that's quite an important thing. The learners liked the new look, probably a little bit fed up of doing the same stuff over and over again. Content-wise, it's been pretty decent so far with the exam sittings. You might have something on, like for example, last November, hobbies was discussed in one of the papers. This summer we had stuff on a journey, all things that the students can relate to and write about quite a bit. Obviously, from a manager perspective, if we've got any managers in the room, changing is obviously a very scary thing to do. Staff are potentially, I don't want to say loyal to specific exam boards, but potentially used to marking, say, the AQA way, for example. You can never probably keep everyone happy with these sort of decisions, but in the end, it's worked out quite well for us. I would say when we first brought it up, you're always going to have one or two people who are maybe a little bit apprehensive of the switch, but thankfully now I think we're all on board, and we've had pretty good results this year, and touch wood, we'll have the same again this year. So I'm just hoping somebody's going to ask me a couple of questions now. Or did anyone want to ask anything in particular, results-wise or anything?
I'm going to ask a question. I'll kickstart us off, Darren. So how did your English team find that transition period from moving from the previous awarding body through to a new awarding body? I know there's some people from your organisation here as well.
Oh, I've got a few, but be careful what I say then. No, I'm really fortunate because we've got a great team here at the college. But hands up, when we did initially discuss it, there were a few people who were potentially not as keen on the move as others, and that's totally to be expected. But when we did make the move, I did feel quite supported by Pearson. They have an excellent subject specialist who did pop in to see us twice in order to prepare our staff for, marking our assessments throughout the year, give us some really good advice, sharing resources, navigating our website. So we did feel prepared after the training, and we were fortunate enough to have the subject specialist come back last week and do another CPD session with us. That was really helpful, if I'm honest with you.
And in terms of like resources and stuff, how did the team kind of find those?
Yeah, I mean, there is the database, like the Pearson stuff that they have online, and they are adding to it all the time. If I'm honest, one of the things that I'd say is an area for improvement with 2.0 is the fact that there's not a huge amount of resources out there. I do know there's books being written at the moment regarding student workbooks and stuff like that. The fact that it's in its infancy, I suppose it's tricky enough to find lots of resources. However, quite a few of the stuff that we used in the past for AQA, we could use it again, just tweaking it here and there. There is a 2.0 teacher's book as well, which was helpful. Some of the staff really appreciated that. So you can actually use what's on the book and transfer it to online as well. And that's been helpful.
Hiya, am I all right to ask a question?
Sure.
That's all right. We're just starting it this year in a further education college, Derby, and I just wondered kind of what would be your biggest piece of advice, because we've got a couple of us piloting it. So obviously we're kind of we've got to scrutinise it and see if it's worthwhile, etc. So what do you think would be your biggest piece of advice, and what do you think is the thing to look out for with regard to the students, do you think?
Oh, that's a good question. I suppose the best bit of advice I could give any FE college in attendance today is to definitely utilize the November reset. It's something that we were obviously, again, a little bit on the fence. Should we go with the exam board that we had for the full year? It's such a short turnaround time, as we know, to get the learners ready for November. But it was just a huge success for us. Absolutely great success for us. It really did kind of, with the huge numbers that I think all colleges had last year, it really helped us to decrease the size of the class. And as I say, great for the learners too. And 100% of our learners had never seen 2.0. So within a short period of time, we were very successful with it.
Okay.
With regards to pitfalls, I don't know. I mean, when you change to an exam board, you're following their scheme of work potentially. The 1 year route planner.
Yeah.
There's going to be things that you think, maybe I didn't need that, etc. There's no potential pitfalls per se, but I would say make sure you try and collaborate with a few colleges. I mean, networking is huge.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of teachers, especially newer teachers, who potentially don't see the benefits of it. But get a good, solid resource bank together. That's what I'd say. There were times that, as a college, we were, trying to find something that would potentially suit certain weeks, etc. But as I say, very fortunate that we've got good teachers in the organisation who aren't afraid to chat with each other. And
that's great. Yeah, thanks for that. Thank you.
No worries.
We've got another hand up from, is it Nonny?
Noni, but yeah, it's fine. Hiya. It's really interesting hearing what you're saying, Darren. We've just moved to it now. We're a five campus college, sorry, in central Manchester, basically. We're looking at about 3,500 students being moved over. We've been told that we cannot enter November resits through Pearson, and we must stick with AQA for now because they haven't done all the transition stuff. However, I'm going to ask the looming question that probably everybody else wants to know. Results. we know that 11 marks up is a huge amount, and I have seen the kickoff on Facebook groups more than anything. How do your results fare compared with what you've had previously, and how did you fare compared to other colleges around you?
So with regards to other colleges around us, I'm not too sure on how we compare to those, but I do know that as a college, we've significantly improved our progress and our high grades. Huge jump from the previous year. Like our November sitting alone, it's actually a little bit sad to hear that you're not allowed to utilize the November sitting. That'll be a decision that'll come back to haunt somebody. What you could do is be really cheeky and ask them for a small pilot group to go in and then do a comparison versus the exam board you're currently using. I think that would be a smart thing to do.
I will do my best. I'm not a program leader, anybody in charge, but I will do my best to back
Though
you up.
you're an incredibly important human being, though. You can let them know that this is not a good idea, what they're trying to get you to do.
Thank you.
We've got another question from Trudy. We can't hear you, Trudy. I don't know if your mic's on mute, or if you're unable to get it to work, you can always type it in the chat. Just while we're waiting for Trudy's, we'll take Joanne's, and then we will probably think about moving on to the next presenter, if that's all right. Joanne?
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jo. I'm from Hotwood Hall College in Manchester. So we've got before we decide whether to change over the whole 1,800 students, I'm doing a pilot this year, and I will be doing a cohort into the November reset, but it is a 6-week turnaround, and obviously they're so programmed when they come from school to do and acronyms and their certain way of answering questions, and it is very different with Pearson. So could I have some advice on how you approached, like, because obviously the curriculum is the same, it's just the way that they assess it is obviously different, i.e. the exam is different. So how you came about changing their exam technique in that short 6-week period.
First things first, I'd say make sure you do get the training that Pearson will provide if you do move over.
Yeah, I've had marker training. Julie was great, and I've been to visit a couple of schools actually that have done the 2.0, and they were invaluable with their advice and resources. So but anything you can add would be gratefully received, because 6 weeks is really short.
Yeah, I suppose utilizing what was delivered in your marking training is going to be really important. Showing the learners that sometimes less is more. I mean, that was something that was huge for us, a bit of an eye-opener, in fact. Every teacher here, we don't have like a regimental approach to exam strategy, but there are a lot of success stories where strategically, I guess, so for example, paper 2, quite a few of our teachers have the approach, if you're looking at question 7 and 8, to actually start on that. The fact that it's a 40-mark question, I know I'm probably saying what a lot of people are saying, it's the obvious, but one of the things with new students, especially some of the students who come to us with grade 2 and 3 who reset, they have poor time management skills. So it's actually ensuring that the learners understand that the first half of their exam should really be spent on question 7 or 8, and that it doesn't, well, the theme obviously links to previous questions, but they can actually do that bit first. I know some of our teachers work really hard on that, and listen to the student feedback as I do some of the students really appreciated that advice. So it's basically like, once the clock hits 20 past 10, flip back to the front of the paper kind of thing.
Brilliant. Thanks, Darren. I'm going to pass over now to Pam, if that's all right. But thank you so much for your insights, Darren. There is another question in the chat. I don't know if you're able to answer it, because I know that you've got to jump off, and Trudy's been able to type her question. So thank you so much for your insights. So we'll move over to Pam now. Pam, are you with us?
Yep.
Right, I'm just going to load your PowerPoint up, and then we'll get
Okay.
started.
So I'll tell you when I need to move on. Hi everybody. So my name's Pam Dale. So I work at Calderdale College. We'll be coming into our 4th year of delivering Pearson's 2.0. And we did have a little drop in results this year, but we still had good results. Over the past few years, I would say that personally myself, I've probably had more 6 7s, 5 6 7s than I've had 4s, than grade 4s, and I've had a few grade 9s. So in that respect, I think similar to what Darren said, we have the students have done well. So, and feedback again from our students has been really positive. They actually do like the exam. They like the structure of the questions. So for learner satisfaction, I think it definitely ticks all the boxes. So today, I'm just going to share some things that I've used over the years and some things that I'm going to implement this year. So if you want to just move it on, Holly. So I've been thinking about reading skills a lot, because you can pop onto the next one, Holly, if you want. Because I think that for me is the biggest area that students have the most anxiety with. It's the resistance to reading is the thing that causes the problems when we're looking at the reading section. Has somebody asked a question there? Or? Yeah. So if you want to pop it on. So some of the stuff that I've got in this PowerPoint have actually come from Pearson's, and some of the stuff I've kind of got from Pearson's and kind of adapted myself. So with this one, this is something that was given to us in some training we had from Pearson's. So I'm not going to read it out, but the first thing that a lot of our learners would do is get to the Cliff 8 and that's it. They wouldn't go any further. They just wouldn't be able to read it. So if you want to pop it on, Holly. So it's an oldie, but a goodie. I've just, sorry, just pop onto the next one a minute, Holly. I think it's the next one, is it? No, go on, sorry. This one. So we'll go back. So it's an oldie but a goodie, and it's something that kind of I've not used for a long time, but when we had the training this year, I thought, oh yeah, let's have a go at doing that. So sometimes I think, things we've used over the years and perhaps forgotten about, I think is a good technique to go back to. You're taking away those words that they're going to struggle with, so therefore giving them a chance to kind of at least have an attempt to reading it. So do you want to pop back, Holly, then again? And then the other back one more. Thank you. Sorry about this. So the other one that I've been thinking about is just literally just breaking it down. So starting with the title, thinking about the title, looking at the pictures and getting them to predict kind of what the text's about, having a discussion before we start to read. So these are some of the things that I'm really going to be trying to implement this year. I'm going to pop it on one more, Holly. And then as I was planning for this, again, sorry. Again, oh, going backwards. Right, so this one. So as I was planning for this the other day, this is just something that I kind of just sort of kind of sprung to mind when I was doing it. So I think one of the things I might do with some of my learners is just give them that picture and just ask them to have a guess at what the text's about, get them to maybe describe it and think of some words and kind of see, if their predictions are right when they actually get the text. The other thing that I thought about doing was just simply what you've got there. So having the picture, and then I just picked out some quotes from the text, and I'd maybe give them one each and get them to kind of think about it, again, predict what the story's about. So that's one thing that I'm going to try this year, to try and engage discussion, really help them with this reading anxiety, because a lot of our students really struggle with that. So do you want to pop it on, Mum? Okay, one more. So again, this is from Pearson. So a small extract, thinking about language, taking out the words there, giving the students the word, get them to think about the how and the why. So breaking things down just to give them a fighting chance of kind of getting somewhere with it, rather than just there's the article, you read it and get on with it. So just trying to sort of like baby steps and bring things down again. So do you want to pop on one more, Holly? So this is something now, I don't know whether anybody's used this technique or not. This is something that I came across this year, which I'm going to implement. So reciprocal reading. So I'm not an expert, but I do like the idea behind it. So it's like collaboration. So they're going to read it as a group. So you have somebody who predicts, somebody who clarifies, somebody who questions, and somebody who summarizes. So I like the idea of that cooperative reading. So this is something that I'm going to try, because I think there'll be a nice buzz in the room. It will create that little community. It will help with relationships in the group. So if you want to pop it onto the next slide, Holly. So if anybody has heard of that and if you've used it, I'd be interested to know how you got on with it. So we have a predictor. So before reading, the leader encourages the group to guess what the text's about based on the title and the headings. So stuff that I've already talked about, so just broken down. Pictures. So this sets the purpose of the reading. Then we have the clarifier. So while they're reading, the leader helps the group identify, clarify difficult words and phrases, ideas in the text. So this is helping them to get that understanding of the text. Then we have a questionnaire. So they read that section. The leader asks questions about the text. These questions help the group to think more deeply about what they've come across and ensure that they understand it. And then we have a summarise. So they summarise kind of what the text's about, the main ideas, and reinforcing it. So this is something that I'm going to try this year and see how we get on. Because for me, I think that's one of the biggest barriers for our students, that anxiety and that kind of fear of reading. So I think perhaps doing it in the group situation will reduce the anxiety and help them to become more comfortable with reading. So we need to go on one more slide, Holly. And then I think it would be quite nice to reflect on the activity and see what they've learnt, what strategies they liked, to help them understand their own learning journey a little bit more. And so something else that I've used, if you want to pop it on, Holly. So thinking about going again. So evaluation is quite big, paper one. So I'm not going to play this video, but I want students to think about evaluation and opinion and bias and all these kind of things. So I'll play that video, and then if you want to pop it onto the next slide. Oh, don't play. So then you're giving the students the two the two opinions about teaching. So with that, what I did, I got the students to evaluate the statement, look at the methods that are used, think about how each individual teacher can have a different opinion and why that would be. So using evidence from the text, which is the video, and to think about those two opposing opinions. So just trying different things to get them to engage with different opinions and to formulate their own opinions, because I think that's something else that a lot of our students, they're not often asked, I don't think, and they're not really forthcoming a lot of the time with opinions. So it was just something that I tried to get them to start opening up and talking and thinking about opinions and other people's opinions and how those can differ with the same text. But using the video was just a nice way to do that. So if you want to go on to the next one, Holly. And then this is something else that I use, which is quite effective. So again, looking at advertisements, getting the students to think about the message in the advert, the language techniques that have used, the opinion, what was their opinion on it, consider different opinions on meat and things like that. So that's something else I use that worked really, really well with our learners. And then there's one on the next slide again. So you can ask them to pick out language features and again think about this idea of opinion and how things can be presented differently by the language that's used, and that can also be reflected in the opinion. So I use that, which is quite effective. And then next one. So again, this one, evaluation. So trying to get them to think about evaluation was quite tricky. So something that I did, I used to do things like I'd hold a bottle up and I would be like, evaluate this bottle in, and then, is it suitable for this? Is it suitable for that? I also wear sandals, even in the winter I wear sandals. So sometimes I'll say to them, evaluate my shoes. Are they effective for today's weather? If it was snowing, would they be effective? Why not? And things like that. So again, that kind of came about from me doing that. So I used this and got them to evaluate the different bags and shoes and things like that and think about the different scenarios and why they may be okay in some scenarios, but not okay in other scenarios. So that really helped my learners to understand the concept of evaluation to start off with. So that's something that I used that was really successful. And then the next one, I'm not sure what we've got next. Okay, and this as well. So I used these. It was a lesson thinking about opinion. So I think we discussed, you know, which one's better, Burger King or McDonald's, I think it was. And I used this, and it was really nice to get them to think about, was it a work of art? Did they think it was a work of art? How much do you think it was worth? And then just got them to look at the picture and kind of just give their own thoughts and opinions on it. And it was absolutely amazing, some of the things that they came out with. I mean, they really engaged with it. And there was one, I haven't got that on here today, but there was one, and it was like a light installation from a Japanese artist, I think. And one student who'd been really resistant to English for the whole year, really didn't want to be in the classroom, could be quite antagonistic and everything else. And these activities, this one and the light installation, she kind of came to life in the lesson, and she talked about how it reminded her of the light installation. I think she said something about it reminded her of babies and rainbow babies and things like that. So it was just something that was there to try and to get them to think about formulating an opinion. But it was a really nice way for them to express themselves in a different way, and to think and to analyse, but not have to look at a text. And I know Pearson's, if you look on their website at the scheme that they've got on there, a lot of the things that they do, it's using pictures to help them to start to formulate opinions and evaluations and things like that. So that's something that I use, which was really successful. And I can't remember what my last slide is. That's it. Okay. So yeah, so that's kind of things that I've tried and things that I'm going to try this year. So if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Pam, I've got a question, and this is coming from that English teacher angle, I suppose, rather than the management side where Darren was trying to cover there. So in terms of again, the transition, so we've kind of spoke about the English teachers transition and a bit about the students. How did you find that the students' transition was? Because I know, again, we've got a lot of people in here that are in that transition year, or they're in that kind of first stages. Did they find that there was a positive difference? You know, I'm thinking about, you talked about evaluation there, so going from like 20 marks to kind of distributing those marks differently. Did they find that it was an easy transition to get to know where those assessment objectives lied?
Absolutely. And we had, and like obviously our feeder schools, a lot of them are AQA, so to us, they've done AQA and then they go straight into LIFT. And we too have put people in for the November resits and been really successful that haven't actually studied the Pearson's LIFT. Yeah, students really transitioned beautifully. There's never been an issue at all. I think for us as teachers, because we taught AQA for such a long time, I think we were the ones that were resistant. And if I'm honest, I struggled for the first few months, I would say sort of till Christmas time. I struggled myself, to be honest. Perhaps it was because we were a little bit resistant to the change anyway. But I would say that I struggle, I think, and we moved to it in the very first year as well. But student-wise, absolutely loved it. And I have actually had students who've said, like, I really like this exam. So, you know, at the end of the day, we do this for the students, don't we? So, and I think as well, just to briefly touch on the marks at the moment, you know, the jump in the marks. I think a positive that we took from it, even though we had students who, you know, were getting 80s and 82s and things, and they'd not passed. I think the positive we took was the fact that it shows a massive improvement. So for us, we've tried to kind of soften the blow a little bit by saying, just look how much you've travelled, you know, because I mean, we had a lot of students who got 1s and 2s last year, and they've just narrowly missed out. So, so I think that's a positive out of kind of things that have gone on, I think, at the moment.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Noni, I can see you've got your hand up, but I'm just for time wise, because I'm conscious that I want other people to kind of go into rooms. Are we okay if I come back to your question and I'll pass over to Ilona to do
Yeah,
her?
that's absolutely fine.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Pat. I muted myself there, sorry. We'll pass on to our last speaker, which is Ilona. And after that, we're going to kind of go into some breakout rooms where you'll get an opportunity to meet with the speakers and other people for kind of 5 or 10 minutes, if I can get them set up working ready, and where you'll be able to kind of chat about some of those topics that you might want to chat about. Just while I'm kind of thinking about it fresh, I've just popped in the chat there for those that have transitioned, because there's quite a few people who I've noticed in the chat that have been delivering this for a year or a couple of years as well. It'd be really great to kind of tap into your experiences. So, you know, how did you as an English teacher or a manager find that transition, and how did your students find that transition? I think it's a really big question that a lot of us have on our minds as we're transitioning into the lift as well. So yeah, I'll pass it over to Ilona.
Thank you, Holly. I'm just going to share my screen, so hopefully it behaves itself. Seem to be doing it. Sorry, bear with me a second. Oh,
Are you all right, Ilona?
yeah, it's just all. Oh, hang on, sorry.
It's all right.
Everything froze for a minute.
You're fine. You're
Having a
fine.
bit of a nightmare. There we go. Can we see that? Is that okay? Can everybody see my screen now?
I
No.
can't see on mine.
Right. Resume share.
There we go.
There
Fabulous.
Right.
I love the slides already. I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, a pretty slide is always good. Hiya, so my name is Ilona. I am a GCSE English lecturer. I work at Doncaster College. So I've had a lot of experience in FE, but predominantly it has been AQA. The past year we have moved to Edexcel 2.0. I was quite resistant at first, but I've definitely found ways, how to manage lessons, make them engaging, and certain strategies. So I'm going to go through a few of these strategies. It might be a bit of a whistle-stop tour. So one of the things with paper one, and a very common concern for anybody kind of going into paper one, is it being 19th century text. And straight away, that was a big concern for me. Having taught FE in English and going back to things that Pam was saying about reading, I was worried about potentially what's going to happen with 19th century text. But actually, it's worked really well. So in terms of paper one, what has worked well for me and other people working with me has been a context of topics. So having a whole context, shorter texts, because they are ultimately shorter texts that are used. And the paper one, the lack of comparison is definitely a blessing, I think, for the students. I have used a lot of resources that have been provided by Pearson, but I kind of had to think about how do I vocationalise as well. So I've touched on a lot of topics such as crime, gender roles, education, any kind of topics that may come up in 19th century. And I think Pearson always kind of touched on that they need to know kind of Victorian values. So by looking at these different types of topics, I've tried to get in 19th century ideals as well. And one of the things is that the students always say it's old language, even though really the language is not that old. They see it as quite a struggle sometimes. And I have found as well that moving from a different exam board, sometimes it is the time constraints. So I do mark for the exam board as well. I'm an exam associate for Pearson, and one of the biggest things that has come up is that certain questions are just not answered in a lot of detail. So there's some of the challenges. So in terms of how have I communicated 19th century ideals to a 16 to 19-year-old? I've done certain things such as word of the week. I used to do it for vocabulary, but it's even better for 19th century language, especially if you're dealing with a 19th century text. You can pick a keyword that you think students might struggle with. They find a definition and then put it into a sentence, so making sure that it's not alien language. I've already kind of covered, but topics with context, if they understand the context. I remember an engineer learner that I had last year, we did about workhouses, and he was in his element. He could tell me everything about workhouses, which then helped everybody else. But by giving context, it's not so scary. Some of the texts aren't as scary. And also I can bring a lot of, I like to bring a lot of making sure that they're using certain ILT. I'm not sure if it's still that, but using Google and different various dictionaries and thesaurus online. So I found that short comprehension activities worked. So 5 questions for understanding. It can also work with recapping as well. So it might be a recap of the previous week. What did we learn? What did we look at? But short comprehension definitely works, especially when it comes to reading. A lot of the time, I'll ask a student what they've read, do they understand it? And sometimes they'll just say no. Whereas if they have to answer certain questions and break it down, it makes it much easier. So this is what has worked particularly well for paper 1. So focusing on the effect of language rather than identifying the techniques. So Pearson actually want us to be more away from identifying techniques, focusing on the effect. This is generally how I've also organised my lessons. So I've done it in blocks of 2 weeks. So for paper 1, it'd be question 1, 2 and 3 in the first week with a writing lesson in the second part. And then week 2, 4, 5 and 6. So because they are separate texts, I've blocked it that way. And then also getting the 7 and 8 skills in rotation. I know that is quite common with English classes from FE, what I've experienced in different colleges, that they tend to break it into reading and writing skills. And it's always worked quite well for me, but particularly well with this paper. And then one of the things that I've tried to really kind of do as a technique is mirroring the question 2 and question 5 skills. I am finding that a lot of the students have not been answering question 5 when really it's the same skills as question 2. So really trying to get that across. So in terms of resources, I like using this in the first week, but you can do it whenever. I've used different Victorian phrases, different 19th century phrases. So I put a phrase on the board and then they have to try and guess what it is. So a lot of the time they can get it. Sometimes they find it a bit more difficult, but it's definitely a good icebreaker. And then it's prompted them even to maybe look for words that may be less appropriate. But it's definitely something that's made them engage. Definitely using different words and getting used to the language. And then I briefly touched on this. I've used many different techniques for language. Language is such a big skill. It seems to be that sometimes in different educational establishments, they'll teach them all the different acronyms, all the different techniques, but really what it needs to be is the inference. So I've trialed this with a few classes of having a quote or the technique in the cloud and then talking about deeper inference. So what is the weather to follow the cloud? And I thought it was quite nice imagery, just to think about kind of how can they go into deeper detail. I'm also going to stick them up all over my classroom this year and to really try and make a kind of deal of it, because I think inference is such a difficult skill for a lot of learners, but it can definitely increase the marks. So that was a thing that I'm trialing and seeing how that's going to go. And then, as we're saying, with short context, so this is one of the starters that I used when we were looking at gender roles. I recapped on previous learning, but also thinking about getting things such as EDI in there, and also making it vocational. So I had a big discussion with a sports group about what sports do you think a woman was allowed to do in the 19th century, and that was really good. So by having a short starter activity that gives short context as well, you can actually do a lot of things in 5-10 minutes that look at both the 19th century, but there's many other parts of it as well. So moving on to paper 2, I do feel like I'm bombarding you with information, but what I found has worked well is language focus. So even though I've mentioned that for paper 1, language focus is a big skill across the whole of the English language qualification, no matter which exam board you do. The texts are more accessible. I feel because they see them more as modern texts, I try to use texts that are accessible. And prompts for writing tasks. I think one of the biggest things in GCSE English is creative writing. A lot of our students struggle with it, particularly in FE. I know myself, I've done a lot of research into different backgrounds and how that affects reading, how that affects imagination. So a lot of the students that come to me, and particularly, I would say Doncaster College, a lot of them struggle with creative writing. So the prompts are a really important part of my practice. And then I've got some popular topics again. Reality TV is a big one. They will all happily talk about Love Island at some point in the year when it comes up. So I try to tap into different areas. It does take a lot of work, but I like to think I've got a bank of resources that I can keep going back to and adapting as well. So some of the big challenges are comparison. I would say paper 2, the most kind of challenging part of it is the comparison. And structure, even though it is quite a small part of this paper, it seems to make students struggle. So I'm going to have a look at that in a bit more detail. So for structure, the easiest way to do that is I talk about the beginning, the middle and the end. So I remember having a childcare class last year and we were doing basic fairy tales. So I said, what happens at the beginning, what happens in the middle, what happens at the end? They could all tell me that. They could all tell me the characters. They could all tell me what happened at certain points. So I've tried to make that as simple as possible. And then looking at comparisons, I use Venn diagrams. I don't claim to be very good at maths, but I think it's a really good kind of visual prompt as well, and comparing ideas. And then looking at kind of quotes and back to language again, what are the best quotes? So I think there is a lot of work to be done with the evaluation. I think a lot of Pam's ideas are really good for evaluation. But one of the things that I was trying to get across with evaluation is looking at quotes as well. What are the quotes that can back up ideas? And then my final thing, and I really like this because it seems to work quite well, is 60-second writes. So they will have an image prompt and a timer, and they've got to get as many words as possible. So some of the resources. So this was a resource where I said, what happens at the beginning, middle and end, short comprehension, just to get them thinking about structure, but not thinking about the complicated parts of it. And then the Venn diagram idea. So early on when you're looking at question 6 for paper 2, I'd probably give some ideas to prompt them and then get them to think about the writer's ideas and perspectives later on in the year by themselves, so they get into the habit of being able to identify them. And then this is my favourite thing. I got a bit of a telling off actually last year because the timer was quite loud and exploded at the end. So one of the maths teachers kept saying, "What is going on in your classroom at 2:45?" And it was just this timer on YouTube that was going off, and all the students were shouting because they get quite competitive. So it is really effective, and it's something that for creative writing, I think is really easy to implement. I often then build on this and get them to think about sentences. You know, once they've got the words, they've got the sentences. Once they've got the sentences, they've got the first paragraph. So it doesn't become too difficult. And there's loads of different times that you can have on YouTube, much to my colleagues' annoyance. So I've enjoyed doing that one particularly. I feel like that's a complete whistle stop of different things that I do. So the kind of final things as well is with moving to Pearson last year, I realised that there was a wealth of different students in the college that had done different exam boards. We did quite well when we put them in for the November resits. There were quite a few of mine that I would say were progression, and they'd done it with AQA a couple of times, and then they did it with the November reset. Bear in mind, they only had 6 weeks. So I created 2 Padlets, one specifically for paper 1 and one for paper 2. And they're available, and I'm sure they'll be available to anybody at the end. So I think that's it, if anybody's got any questions.
I love your timers. Can I just say that? I'm definitely going to be looking for those timers. You raised some kind of points that I was just thinking about with the writing, you know, actually that importance of the time spent in a time circumstance. You know, we try and get students to practice writing with their access arrangements as well, and that can be really time consuming a lesson, but it's really important that we are getting students to write against those times and to practice, because that's part of the exam, isn't it? It's the part of the exam that we struggle with the most. That's the exam skill. And there's an ex-colleague, because she's now a friend, Susan Lamasso, in here, and we used to have lots of conversations around that importance of really timing that creative writing to really craft it. So yeah, that, you know, bringing that back in, I think is really important.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do, Ilona, if that's okay, is I'm going to ask people to pop some questions in the chat for you to catch up with. Just so everyone's aware, we will send out the recording, we will send out the resources that people have shared with today in due course, so you'll be able to get those. I can't promise when they'll hit your inbox, because that's not my part of my little role here, but you will get access to them. So what we are going to do now is I'm just going to pop you into some breakout rooms, because we've heard lots of great stuff today, and I think it's really important that you just have 5 or so minutes to maybe chat with a few people in those rooms. But I know some people are zooming off, excuse the pun. So what I want to do is I just want to kind of share with you a bit of information in case I don't get it in at the end, just while some people are still here, because I appreciate it's past 5 o'clock. Which is just that. Obviously, it'd be great if we could have more and more people come and join the English Association. You know, like I said at the start, it's always fantastic that we can give these events away for free to people, and we want to continue that. And it's a big help from our membership provision that we're able to do that, and people give up their time. And like I say, this event's not sponsored. No one's being paid for this. This is done out of people's time and goodwill. But really also what I want to share is that we've got another event coming up, which is based around general. So today's been a lot about Pearson, but we've got a general kind of GCSE resit session. That's happening on Tuesday, the 15th of October. So the same time, 4:30 till 5:30. We've got 3 fantastic speakers from FE institutions who are going to come and share again some good practice and some kind of strategies of what's going on. And we will be looking to continue with this. So this is our 3rd or 4th in the series of gathering voices, which is really exciting. So if you've got something that you really want to share, or you're really interested in, finding out more, my email address is on there and I've popped it in the chat as well. So we welcome anyone with anything that you want to share. And as well, if you've got something relating to functional skills, you don't have to do a big presentation. If you want to just speak for 5 minutes, about what you're doing, or like I say, a strategy that's worked in your college or training provider, you're more than welcome to do so. And you can keep up to date with all those events. We're pretty active on LinkedIn, and we've also just joined Blue Sky as well. And I don't know if anyone else has joined that, but we've also just made that move over there. So please come and join us and follow what we talk about. And we're here to help promote English. Okay. I'm just going to pop you in the breakout rooms. I'm just going to create a few as we go. And then hopefully you can get some conversations for the next kind of 5 minutes, and then we'll come together at the end and just kind of close up, if that's all right with everybody. Right, hopefully it will put you into those rooms. Should be able to click join a room, I believe, if it doesn't whisk you away.
No.
So along the top, it might ask you to join a room, along the side on the breakout rooms. If you've got to go, no worries. But really encourage you to join those rooms.
Hello, can you hear me?
No. You all right, Sarah?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I can't. Can you just explain how to do that, please?
Yeah, you should have a little button that
Because
says
I've got
join along the top.
join along the top.
Yeah, it should be a little blue button. If not, let me see if
It
I
just
can
says,
put you into a
says
room.
no, I don't have anything at the top. I don't know why.
See if that's worked now, Sarah.
Oh, here we go. Join the breakout. So
Fab. No worries, Donna. They'll be in there for the next couple of minutes. Just give everybody 5 minutes, and then we'll rejoin at the end just to kind of say thank you and bye. Hi, so you should have somebody else in your room with you, but no worries. You should be able to join your breakout room and have a chat with someone. So I can see that there's somebody else in there. But we'll all be coming back in about a minute anyway, so no worries. But thank you for trying. Everybody's zooming back in. Some rooms that are just closing out now, so we'll just give everybody a couple more minutes. Hopefully you found that a good use of your time and you managed to get some answers to some questions maybe you had from our speakers and other people. It never seems like there's enough time with these sessions. I feel like if we put them on for 3 hours, we'd fill the 3-hour slot. If we put them on for 2 hours, we'd fill the 2 hours. So there never seems like there's enough time, and that's why I think it's really important that you make sure you are sharing your contact details, sharing your Twitters, or a lot of people have moved from Twitter now, but sharing your Blue Sky, sharing your LinkedIn, your email addresses, where you can keep those kind of connections live. I think everybody is back. Lovely. I did just want to share one more kind of little glimmer of information with you, in that I don't think she's in here, but a lady called Vanessa Nelson created a LinkedIn group specifically for Pearson, and she put that together kind of, again, grassroots, where we can all kind of put some ideas in there. There was a few people in there already. I'm just going to quickly try and find it so I can share it with you all if I can get to it. So that there was around about 20 teachers in there to begin with, and we started it as a bit of a conversation point, but I think it'd be really great, there's 21 members in it, if we can maybe start keeping that live and kicking to keep some of this some of these conversations and keep some of these connections. I know some people will have shared different piece of information. Anyway, I'll share it in the chat in about 1 minute. But again, I just want to say thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate it, especially after a hard day's work and probably a long day planning and enrolment. We're hoping we'll be able to do something maybe related to Pearson again soon. And if you want to feed anything back, you're more than welcome to drop me an email. If you think there's more demand for it, then we will, we're here to listen to teachers and again, create that grassroots community that we can bring for everybody. All right, lovely to see some faces as well on your cameras. So hello to those who've got the camera on. It's great to see you, and I can see other people in other rooms, so that's even brilliant. And have a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ilona. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
Hi, will we get the email addresses of the people?
No, because they'll be